everyone. Welcome to One Take, where we are an official podcast that's starting right now. So, to explain to everybody what this podcast is about, is I like to bring in people who are involved in the film industry and basically talk about their experiences and basically anything involving film, acting. But we also talk about stuff a little bit outside of that, but that's the primary focus. I thought this would be a good idea to essentially just give voices to people who are trying to start in the industry and basically expand what we have here. Like it shouldn't be just like Hollywood. We have also a bunch of other talented people who are from all around. We are from the Central Florida area, and right with me, I have two directors. We have director Michael Wright and director Christian Fink. What's up, guys? Thank you for showing up.
Hello,
Hey,
everybody.
thank you for having me.
So, give you guys a brief introduction in yourselves. What made you get into the industry, and what made you get into films?
I mean, I always wanted to be a filmmaker, family movie nights when you're a kid. I was always the kid that would, whenever my family would go grocery shopping, I would immediately run to the DVD section and be scared by all the horror movie covers. But my mom got me a camera when I was a junior in high school, and that's when it really took off. A lot of unfinished scripts in high school, but the camera allowed me the ability to take photography, senior portraits for friends, family events, things like that. And then that bled into my enlistment into the U.S. Navy for mass communications. So photography, journalism, things like that. And then when I was there, I wanted to go to school for film just because I wanted to build the network. So then I enrolled in the Savannah College of Art and Design. I graduated from there in 2021 during the pandemic. So senior year was, all online. And I wrote a romance film during the pandemic where they had a no contact rule. So try to, have a romance movie without anyone touching each other. But It was an interesting challenge. And then now I'm here in Tampa, Florida.
That's what's up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mr. Michael Wright.
Yeah, so I guess we're doing our villain origin stories. I mean, for me, like as a kid, I always liked movies. I always liked the idea of being able to make movies. But for me, it's kind of like the NASCAR dream as a kid, where everyone wanted to be a race car driver, or, professional football player. Realistically speaking, you probably can't. So I was just doing my own thing. I went to college for engineering and all that. And funnily enough, what made me get into filming was the greatest film of all time, Cats, from 2019. We went to, we went to a showing of Cats.
Peak cinema.
Absolutely wasted. And I was having a great time. We were just, I feel bad for everyone else, and the two other people in the theater, that wasn't drinking like we were. But afterwards, my friend at the time is like, bro, this movie sucks so bad. I could make a better movie. It's like, yeah, okay. It's like, yeah, no, I'm serious. I'm gonna make a movie. So it's like, okay, well, I'll help him out a little bit. Still just kind of thinking in my mind, it's like, whatever. But as things were going along, and as he kind of was just dropping the ball and things, I was kind of picking up more things to where now I'm writing, and now I'm directing, and now I'm producing, and now I'm DP and all that stuff. And it's like, wait a minute, I kind of just reeled myself into this, and you know what? I don't regret it. I like it. It's kind of a interesting way of going about it. I didn't, even at the time when we were first gonna shoot it, I wasn't thinking it was gonna do anything to me, change the way I feel about it. But it's like, yeah, man, it's fun. It's interesting. I don't want to say it's easy, but it's there's something different between doing something that you kind of like as a job, that it's not really a job anymore. It's this is fun. It was actually fun. All this work you would think would be a challenge, you think would just be an absolute pain in the ass, but no, man, it's great. Yeah, so
it's a passion.
Yeah.
See, I know you guys have been doing it for a while now. One thing I like is that the fact, one of the blessings in disguise when the pandemic hit was that while Hollywood was closed and stuff like that, it opened up a lot of other independent filmmakers to come in and swoop in. And then I seen that it was almost the rise of Tubi and stuff like that, because before COVID, not many people were talking about Tubi and just independent films and stuff like that. But when that happened, when everything was shut down, there were some people we don't have these regulations. We can do this and pump our stuff up. So how was because I know we filmed for Polybius around COVID, and
yeah,
I don't know if you had any projects during that time. How did you take on COVID as a challenge when you guys were filming?
Well, we were like realistically speaking, I think we're getting close to the sort of the tail end of it, because we originally had. I guess, by the way, for the audience, so the first film that me and Gio worked on was this feature length film called Polybius. Because I'm an idiot, and the first film I wanted to do was a feature length film. Because I'm extra. I'm going to go out. I'm going to give it all, and it was great. Don't get me wrong. So we first had someone for the main protagonist, this FBI guy called Agent Hudson. We had someone else at the time. We had to change, but when we had that person, it worked out good for us because we had access to the old St. Pete police station. Because not only because of COVID, but they're also going to demolish it. So we had, unrestricted access. So we kind of like worked in or expanded upon some scenes in Polybius with this police station. Unfortunately, by the time we switched to another lead, the place was demolished. But that was something in particular that was good. Another thing that I guess would be good is because it was a feature film set in the 80s, like trying to film in the Pinellas area, you have to be very specific with what you can show. And one of the things, of course, is modern cars. That's just absolute no.
Yeah. He really took on that challenge because not only was it a time period piece, it was like shot in the 80s.
Yeah.
But also, with COVID regulations stuff like this. So that one must have been the extra challenge to also do a feature film.
Yeah, but it worked out good though because of COVID, there's less cars on the road, so that kind of helped out in that situation, or just like kind of less people in general to kind of give off the modern vibe. So I think in a way it definitely played to our advantage, but we weren't as restricted because like by the time that we're doing like bigger sets with bigger extras, COVID was really starting to wind down. I don't think there was any, like by the time we were doing like the shootout at Ybor, I don't think there was any restrictions or anything like that. I could be wrong. I don't remember.
What about you, Christian? Did you face anything during like the pandemic while you were filming?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because I was a senior at SCAD and I was working on my senior thesis Fading with my producer Tim Kandra. And so we had not only the COVID restrictions that were just implemented across the board, across the industry, we were also the added benefit of school policy as well. So it's like any film that had contact between students, it had to be like pre-approved, and basically almost everyone got denied. So I had to completely rethink how I was going to approach this project because it was a romance film between these two characters. And it's like, how do you show love if they can't even like hug or kiss each other? But that really forced me to, I rewrote, there was 18 drafts of that script. And the first draft was 15 pages and the 18th draft was 3. Yeah. So, but that really forced me to like really think creatively about how to approach it. And it worked out in the end. The film came out more beautiful than I could have expected. Okay. And, but yeah, with the COVID restrictions, it was just like one hurdle after another. It's like, ugh. But also in school, because like you have students that are working on production gigs with the union. Like I know the menu was starting to go into production. I was a second unit PA on the menu. And even at that time, people were still like wearing masks, temperature checks, everything, provide a vaccination card and the whole 9. But thankfully, things have kind of tapered off since then. But my projects were happening like right at the peak of the pandemic. So like everybody was extra paranoid, extra cautious. So it's like, all right, so I had to buy the thermometer gun, like
just scan every. Yeah, I went through that one.
Yeah, log everything and like present it to your teacher and stuff. But it worked out in the end. But I'm just glad that things have kind of calmed down since then.
Yeah. I have a similar story to that when I also like at the time I was doing also theater, and that's very weird to do that when you have all these COVID restrictions, because we had to do this play. It's called Measure for Measure, which was a Shakespearean play. And one thing about it is a hypersexual play, and we had to be 6 feet apart from everybody.
Yeah.
And we had someone come in, and if we were to break those things, he would shut us down. So that was one of the challenges we had to do. And it starts with an orgy. So we had, I think, the first time ever. That's all things start. So I think we're the first play to ever like have a 6 feet apart orgy. That was like it was basically we shot it in a way where it was like because it like we couldn't have an audience in the play.
Yeah.
So we have to have people with cameras and stuff like that, and basically almost like live stream it. So we had to do it was all about like angling and measuring what the camera is like picking up.
Oh yeah,
it's one of those things. Like I know, like I mean, and I've also directed a couple plays during the height of the pandemic, which we couldn't use the space for the theater space. So what I had to do is I adapted and I did almost like a quasi film where I tell we couldn't do cameras and stuff like that. Okay, so I got everyone's laptops and I filmed it like it was that way. I zoomed it, I put it through Zoom, and I shoot like I had like 5 or 6 laptops and angled them. So like they were like camera links, and anytime I would just edit them all together. And that's how I basically did like 2 plays, and it were like they were like almost quasi plays because of that. But that's like the thing about being a director is like nothing really goes according to plan.
never.
Yeah, I mean, like, if your production goes entirely according to plan, you must be dreaming or like in purgatory or something like that. Because for me, I'd say like directing is just always improvising. It's always situation comes up. How do you make the best of it? It's puzzle solving. Like it's real world scenarios that you have to kind of implement into life. But you know, at first you're like, oh, this fucking sucks. But you know, then you're like, oh, well, you know what, this is kind of fun. It kind of gets fun just having to deal with.
It could be very stressful too because it's like no one like I guess especially when you first jump into it, you have no idea like because you probably have it all set in your head like okay, this is going to take from this time frame to this time frame and every shot same and like that. But it is pretty much like an occupation that's like there's a lot of roadblocks ahead because like if one thing is off like lighting or like some people aren't here on time and stuff like that, then it throws the whole thing off. And or what if like you're in a situation where like you have a script and you're doing it but you're like you know what, this could be better or this could even be different, like you have to like adapt that on the fly. I mean, there's a lot that's involved.
Been there.
Yeah.
Because right after graduation, I attempted to do my first feature called Trapped, and I wrote a 90-page script because I was just fed up with my college at the time. And we were on day 7 of an 18-day production schedule, and my lead actor's back gave out, so we had to cancel the rest of the shoot. But for the days prior, because we were shooting at my producer's apartment, and it was like day 5, day 4, and we were like, oh man, we're not gonna get everything. So I remember I like went home. I literally had for that feature, there was also about 18 drafts of that feature, and I wrote it's literally on my computer as the nuclear draft. I'm like, if everything goes wrong, we at least have a script we can fall back on to where it like embraces the chaos of the production schedule. And on day 5, I was like, okay, maybe we don't make like a whole hour-and-a-half long feature. What if I just took like the best scenes from the script, lifted that out of it, cut out the rest, and it's like we at least have like a 1 hour solid like content, you know, like whether it be a pilot or just like a short film, because I know Nolan's like following was like 65 minutes. I'm like, we could do a 60-minute feature. Like we could still get away with that. But it was shot down, which kind of aggravated me a little bit. But yeah, you're always just thinking of what you can do with the resources that you have. And I think if you're in pre-production, the better you plan for what you have, then the better the production is going to be. But no matter what, it's like if you're in production, it goes smoothly, you're probably going to find some issues in the edit. Right. Or if like the production is chaos, you might still have some magic that you'll be able to pull through in the edit too. It's just
not to be so rigid about it, like your plans and stuff like that. Be able to like
every problem's an opportunity,
right? And of course, every time you learn something new, so it's like, oh well, I can try and mitigate this. You know, you can't always maybe solve unknown variables, but you can at least find ways to mitigate it or find solutions around it or whatever. But yeah.
Do you guys feel yourselves to be more like a free-flowing director or more technical? Because I've worked with both. Where one would be like, no, I want it specifically this way and the blocking specifically this way, and then like turning because like I have this vision of it, and I know if we do it exactly the way we're doing it, it's going to come out perfect. And or you more agree with the idea of like, let's try it this way or let's try it that way, because like some people just have like a clear vision being like, if we do it this way, because I seen it in my head and like I know if we do this properly, this is going to blow people's minds out of the water. And some people are more collaborative. They're more like, I didn't think of that, but let's try it, you know? And I honestly think those two takes they're both valid. I've seen people do both of them and they both work.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely both. I do both of them. There is, of course, some things that I'm like adamant it has to be this way, but there are other things that, and particularly, especially like who I'm with, like certain actors, certain crew members, they can have good ideas. Like, I mean, just even talking about like writing, I personally don't like to just write things solo. I always like to have a co-writer. Not only should you just, have someone to just double check things over, for like uh, editing and posterity and stuff like that. But just it's always good for me to have a different opinion, even if like you may not use that or may not think that it would actually work. It's still good to get other people's feedback, of kind of sort of a sample at least for like what the audience is going to think. What other people's interpretations are, because just what's inside your mind may not always be able to reflect exactly what's on the screen. And I don't believe the idea that, at least at like where we're at, no one's going to be able to like have everything perfectly. Oh, this is exactly the way it is. This is exactly the way it's going to go down. I'm sorry. I don't think most people have that ability. I don't even think most people in Hollywood do. I'm pretty sure like, a lot of them are still getting like advice and feedback from other people. Of course, there's, like certain scenes for sure that it has to be the way that was inside their mind. Don't get me wrong. But, like the full film, nah.
Yeah. So there's like almost like core things about it that like
Yeah.
these can't be compromised or changed.
Yeah.
But other things are just left to like to be changed and stuff like that.
Yeah, I have a good kind of rule that I like to do with writing the scripts with my co-writers. Like, we both have one thing that's unchangeable. So like if we're like in a disagreement about something, you have that one thing that you can use. Once you use it, you can't use it for something else. But like, it's like, no, it has to be this way. I don't care what you said, it has to be this way. So each person gets one of those. So I think
okay.
that's kind of a good compromise, because you only get one, so you have to use it sparingly. So it has to be something that you're really, really adamant has to be that way.
Everybody gets one.
Yeah.
What about you, Christian?
I know for me, it depends on the project, and it depends on the scene too. I don't really have like a specific like hard set style. It's like, oh, it has to be this way the whole way through. Typically when I'm writing, I actually have like in my final draft file, like I have like a set of rules, because I write for budget. So it's like, okay, I know I could probably get like 3 or 4 actors for this film. I have access to like 3 or 5 locations, and like those are the rules. And it's like, however I can manipulate that to fit into the story that I want to tell, then that's pretty much it. Because I think I like limitation, because then it really does stretch your creativity for like, okay, how do you overcome and navigate around it? And to me, that's what makes it fun. It's just like the ultimate puzzle.
Yeah.
But like when working with actors and stuff, I mean, because we've done a lot of stuff together, like I have an idea like for how I think it should go, like in terms of like blocking and camera angles and stuff, because my background's in photography, so I very much see the composition. But it's like within that framework, you have the freedom to go do whatever the hell you want. The crackhead take that we're always doing.
Yeah, we always get a crackhead take with
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
we'll have the traditional takes, and sometimes we'll add notes and try to do it a little bit different. And there's ones like basically gives us like free reign to
Okay.
however we want to
Yeah.
interpret the script.
Yeah. Because I love starting out. It's like, all right, let's just do a rehearsal. Let's see what you guys are bringing to it. And then do a few takes with some direction, try to kind of guide it because I hear things in a specific way too. So it's like I need the line to sound this way. And then that last take, it's like with all of that direction you just received, now you can have like a more informed improvisation as well. And let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
And more often than not, that last take is usually the take I go with.
Really, the one that's left field, you like that?
More typically, yeah.
Really?
Not in every situation,
situation.
but more often than not, I'm using that last take.
Like, is it like almost according to plan, or do you feel sometimes there's something that comes like completely unexpected, but then you're like, you know what, whoa, that was actually pretty good. Or
Yeah, like
fuck did you get that
something
from?
unexpected, because it's like how you say it, or it's like, oh, he had like this facial expression that just added this like extra layer, and that's the stuff that I'm really really looking for. And because even though I write the project and it comes up, I'm still open to everybody else's interpretation of it because I know that everybody's going to have a very different opinion on the script than what I originally intended, and that's what makes it fun. And it's also just the kinds of stories that I'm telling. It's like they're up for interpretation, and that's the fun of it. Yeah.
Did you guys ever get an interpretation of a film that like you guys made and like well that wasn't really what I thought. Like, does that make sense? Like, what do you do? Like, when do you consider it? Or you're like, no. Or like how do you view? Because like no, there's like even like a lot of paintings where like, especially if you're dealing with like abstract art and stuff like that, that like it's there and like there might be an inherent meaning, but it's not very evident, and it's up to the person, to the viewer, to actually look at it and examine it. And, and everyone has their own experiences. You know, some people have like based on your background and stuff like that, might draw into certain elements in something that another person would not.
Yeah, that was very much my first feature.
I mean, I think that like although it could be considered objectively wrong, someone's opinion on what the piece is compared to what the artist was originally doing, I don't think that there's not any merit in that person's opinion. Also, I don't know. I kind of prefer when like the director doesn't actually like say, okay, let me break down exactly what this was supposed to mean or whatever. I don't know. I think that's kind of fun. I think it's fun too, just like people's kind of wacky takes or whatever. I like saw something on YouTube the other day how this dude was kind of like breaking down how in Michael Bay's Transformers the Autobots were actually like fascists and the Decepticons were actually the good guys. He was like breaking it down. It's not like Michael Bay didn't mean to do that. He's just kind of incompetent with his story, but it's funny. If you look at it that way, I don't know. I mean, like, is it wrong? Kind of, but I don't know. It's just a way to look at it. Whatever. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
That's a man who probably has a lot of fun. Like he gets probably millions of dollars, and he's like, "No, fucking have fun." That's kind of a wild thing. And you know what? Like that's the thing. Like we've had this discussion a little bit before with producers and stuff like that. That like it could be very liberating because you have that money, but also your hand could get guided in places, and sometimes you have to fight for your vision, and sometimes you consider basically, well, maybe he's right and stuff like that. Because like a lot of producers, I mean, and with respect to them, at the end of the day, I mean, it's a business. It's a business of trying to make money on it. They want a return on their investment.
Yeah.
That's why usually you get a lot of like remakes and stuff like that. Because I mean, we view it, and some people roll their eyes, but sometimes but it's like they know it's something that works. It's something consistent,
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of those people that roll their eyes, they're still going to go to watch it anyway.
Exactly.
So it's kind of, it's really is the hypocrisy there. Is like
the Fast and Furious films.
No, don't get me wrong. Like with remakes, I mean, I once in a while scoff at that too, and like didn't really need to be made again. Like it was only 10 years ago, or sometimes like 15 years ago, 20, and like that. But sometimes I feel like with certain movies, like where the execution on it wasn't really that great. But when the technology is now, it could deserve another chance, right? I feel like that should be almost a kind of, which is pretty much the opposite of what people do. But like to me, like sometimes you see like you'll see a movie that has like a strong concept, but the execution wasn't good.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the best remakes are the ones that you're not even aware are remakes. You just think it's entirely the original thing because you didn't even know about the original because the original one it wasn't good, and this one is just so much better. It's just on the radar, and people aren't even aware that it was like unless they made it clear that it was a remake or whatever. But
I'm a big advocate for remaking films that didn't really have a good shot at the time they came out. The first film that comes to mind would be My Best Friend is a Vampire. I think that film, if it got remade today or even turned into like a Netflix series, I think that would clean house because it was a campy, corny like 80s film, and it was it was also a metaphor for being gay at the time because this kid is turning into a vampire, and there's like this elder vampire trying to like show him the way, and the parents are noticing, and it's like, what is our son up to? And they like go to the room, they like find his wardrobe has changed and stuff, and it's like, oh my god. So like the parents think, and I'm like, that would be, it's just, there was one performance in that film that was genuinely terrible. I was like, oh man, I was cringing when I was watching it. But if that got remade today, it's like, I think that would clean house and like revitalize the fan base for the classic, because I think it's like a cult classic in some circles. But if it got remade today, especially with the kinds of stories that are coming out now, I think that would clean house.
There's some films I feel like they just came out in the wrong time. Like one, like two of them that pop in my head And one is because it was so out of left field. And the other one was like it's a fantastic movie, but there was just so much around during that time that like it kind of got pushed under. Like for the left field one, Donnie Darko. I feel like that movie was so left field, was so interesting. Yeah. Like that's one of those movies like you need to watch that twice, but like it's done so way that it's like it is interesting and stuff like that. But even like sometimes you're lost, like how does that work? And then like for me, like they actually it was a remake. This is what I'm talking about, which is one that like that was basically an example. Like sometimes you could remake something better. Dread.
Yeah, sure.
Oh my god, I love that movie.
I can't believe I like. Lenny is adamant that the OG Stallone Dread is better than the new one. I'm like, no way, no freaking way. He legitimately thinks that like Stallone did a good job acting in that. I was like, no.
And it's good for the campiness of it, but like, that was exactly what I wanted to see from Dread. Yeah. Just like a straight up action and stuff like that with tension and stuff like that. Like this, bring out this world that's like very different. That this. What do you call it? Dystopian world where like it's very different from what like we see like a dystopian world. Like it makes you interested in what's happening going on here. That was the one thing that like there's different types of sci-fi, and one of the sci-fis I'm not really crazy about is ones that are very much like they take so many elements of what things have already happened. Like they'll wear stuff that's like Renaissance, and they'll wear something that's like early Persian or just like early ancient Roman. Like to me, like if you recognize those elements, it throws you off, right? Yeah. One film's like to me like Dune. Dune does things so well that I love. Like even like it's hard for like the first part of Dune. And it's basically just setting up. And that's why I know people that either love that film or they hate it. And that's only because like, I know it's a little slow and drags them. But to me, like it's just so different. And I really appreciate stuff that's like completely alien for what we have. You know?
Yeah. You were talking about, or I guess I was talking about like films that I guess are so good that people aren't even aware of the original. I wonder how many people are aware of David Lynch's version of Dune, because I saw that one. That one was definitely.
They actually did a screening of it before Dune Part 2.
Oh,
yeah.
I never seen it, but I knew of it.
Like, I've seen clips, and I'm like, that's enough.
I don't know. I kind of have like a soft spot for it, just because like, hey, they got oh my god, I have a mental blank. The lead singer in The Police. What's his name?
Oh, Sting?
Sting, yeah. They have Sting wearing a diaper, and it's like, oh, it can't be bad, surely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something, like David Lynch is definitely unique. I know that he was actually originally supposed to direct Star Wars Episode 6, which would have been very interesting to see how David Lynch would take that.
Oh, man, yeah.
It's like, I don't know what he would do with the Ewoks or the Emperor, but some whack shit for sure. So
those are conversations I have a lot with friends. It's like, because I remember when I watched Dune Part 1 with two friends that are very, very close to me, and we were walking back to the car, and we were like, oh, Denis Villeneuve, he's the only man that could have made this movie. And then like the whole drive home, we were talking about like, well, what would a James Cameron Dune look like? What would a Christopher Nolan Dune look like? Like,
there's certain things that are just very iconic.
Yeah.
Like to me, I think this is probably one of the most iconic part, pretty much of horror history, is The Exorcist.
Yes.
And like it's when the priest first comes into the house, and that person, and she opens up the door, and you didn't even see the priest; you just see the shadow silhouette. Yeah. And I love the shit out of that.
The Exorcist.
Because I've never it's like no. That's an idea that like. That's a 1 in a million idea. That's $1 million idea.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and I still remember watching that for the first time. My room was in the basement. It was a nice basement. It wasn't like a creepy dark dank. Like lock him away.
You had to justify.
Yeah. But I remember I was watching it. I was 13, and like all the lights in the house were off. It was like 2 a.m. and I stayed up until the sun rose. And even when the basement had sunlight coming into it, I still like ran through the basement up the stairs. I'm like, okay, I'm safe.
I love how you justify it. Yeah, but my parents love me. It's not like they put me in. People were thinking like the Harry Potter thing when like homeboys like, there's no such thing as magic slams the door. And homeboys just sit there in the dark.
The boy who lived.
Like to me, like because we were saying like was it the OG Dune is like a movie that you'll defend and stuff like that. I think everyone has like that movie that they'll defend.
Oh yeah.
Like to me, like a lot of people shit on this, but I love the Watchmen movie.
Yes.
I think it's really good.
It's so great.
I don't know why people like, but it gets shit on us a
It's
lot. I think it's because
definitely
Zack Snyder, but like Zack Snyder that was one of his best.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was him as
is
Pete.
his best.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can't forget that line. It's like, what happened to the American dream? It came true.
Yeah.
That gets me every time.
I think even what's the dude's name? Is it Roger Moore?
Alan Moore.
Alan Moore. He he eventually kind of stepped back. Is like, you know what? Actually, it's not that bad, and that's really good because he hates any adaptations of his work.
Yeah.
He despises any of it. So if he at least gives like it was an okay nod to Zack Snyder's, then that's almost like his seal of approval because like that's the highest rating that he would ever.
Have you guys read the original graphic novel?
I have not.
I have not.
Oh, my friend who I saw Doom Part 1 with, he lent it to me because he had the graphic novel, and I was reading through it. I burned through it in like 2 days. And the movie, I think the reason that movie was so, like, that he gave that kind of compliment is because if you look at the comic, like, the shots are basically just lifted straight from the comic. Like, Dr. Manhattan exploding in the reactor and stuff like that. The American Dream, it came true.
He did that too with 300. Like it's straight from the book.
Yeah, that was also a comic too.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people do reset. I feel like it's one of those movies that if you don't like it, you still have to respect it because it's still very well made. Like the production value is there, and it's just you can't deny the imagery.
It's very in your face.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think one of those problems with it is like I think it was probably almost like a purist problem maybe that like it didn't have everything. Like I know there was a segment about an old man in the sea and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think it didn't add that, and then I think that's probably what people had a problem with.
Yeah, you can't fit everything.
No, exactly. You can't. It'd be like a 4-hour film.
Yeah. I'm sure people would. I mean, then again, Justice League, Zack Snyder, 4 hours. I ate that up though. I love that one.
Did it fix the original release?
In my opinion, yes.
Yes.
Because I remember watching the first Justice League in the theater, and
yeah, dude, that was bad.
Yeah, I was like, what is happening on the screen?
But that's the thing is like it wasn't really his fault. It's just his hands were tied.
Yeah, and the tragedy that he endured.
Right.
That, yeah, and it's like you don't bring in Joss Whedon to replace Zack
Snyder.
Snyder.
They're two different vibes.
I'd rather like David Fincher or someone.
Right.
Like, someone who would be like, I hate comic book films.
Yeah.
I would still take that than Joss Whedon.
Yeah. That's what it was. Like it was a little disjointed because essentially like it was just two different vibes on it. Zack Snyder had a completely different view than Joss Whedon did.
Yeah.
Joss Whedon wanted to do like an Avenger-ish kind of more fun kind of vibe, but that wasn't the vibe that was being set up. That wasn't a vibe set up for Man of Steel. It like when you watched it, it kind of almost felt a little disjointed and stuff like Batman v Superman. That wasn't the vibe that they were going for, and so you get all this, and then out of nowhere, like everyone looked like they're doing improv in the Apollo. It doesn't really like it kind of throws you off a little bit
because that was I always liked that difference. Like Marvel was like, okay, this is the more popcorn, family friendly, bright, warm, happy, comedic, and I liked that DC was like they marketed themselves as like, we're the more dark and adult. Now, whether they succeeded or not, that's up for debate. But it's like I did like that. But then at some point down the line, DC was like, we got to be more like Marvel.
Yeah. Then Marvel just keeps making more and more and more stuff. You know, like.
Yeah.
Do you guys still watch those or
no?
No, I haven't. I think like the last Marvel movie that I saw was. I mean, Into the Spider-Verse. Does that count, Sony?
Yeah, I was gonna ask like, does the Spider-Mans count? Because I watched the Spider-Mans.
Yeah, like in terms of like the MCU, the last film I saw was it Far From Home with like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield?
Yeah, that would be. I think that would be with me.
Yeah, that was the last.
Is it Far From Home or No Way Home?
No Way Home. Yeah, that's right. But the Sony Spider-Man, like those are awesome.
Yeah, to me, like, because like I can't say no to Spider-Man. I mean, Spider-Man, like that's super. That's such an iconic thing. Like,
classic.
Me, like, I feel like that's one of those like key things about like Spider-Man. It's just like he's just a character that like I feel like no matter where you are, because like he's known worldwide. Because like to me, if you've ever been like a teenage boy, like he's instantly relatable. to me, like I don't know, I relate so much to Spider-Man. I feel like a lot of people do.
Oh yeah, and the character's old enough. It's like it spans so many generations. It's like you have like whole families that are like raised on Spider-Man. It's great. I love it.
To me, like when it comes to superhero movies, I like those ones that are mainly like one-off. Like to me, The Watchmen. My favorite one is V for Vendetta. That's one of my favorite.
Yes.
That's straight up one of my favorite movies.
The
I'm not gonna
Wachowskis.
lie, yeah. That's straight up one of my favorite movies.
Was
Like,
that it's Alan Moore, right? Was that an Alan Moore?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I definitely get that.
That's the one graphic novel I haven't read yet, but I know I should.
Actually, yeah. I don't know what his opinion on that film is. I don't know if he actually liked it or not.
He's a hard man to please.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Same with the writer for The Boys. His name is evading me right now.
Right.
Yeah, but he like very adamant. He's like, I hate superheroes, and that's why he wrote The Boys out of spite.
Well, that's what it is. I mean, that's a super unique take on it. Like The Boys and stuff like that. I really like that show.
Oh, same.
I think to me like it really like it does a good reflection on modern society, and it gives almost like a good basically a good reflection of what these people would be like when you give someone like unlimited power, unlimited unchecked power. So like I think it's very cool with that. It's also like
Sponsored
shot
heroism.
really well and
Sponsored heroism.
Yes. I think that's to me that's honestly a real fun take on it. Like I know they had some problems putting it out with season 4 and stuff like that, but like that'd be kind of that is one of the shows that like I am kind of hooked on.
Oh yeah, I'm excited for season 4, and I listened to the Final Draft podcast a lot, like for writers and stuff, and they had one of the writers from The Boys, and he talked about his experience like writing on the show and everything, and how he got into the industry, and like it's just they have a really talented group of writers. Although my only complaint is the end of season 3. It's like so more people should have died in that final episode.
I haven't seen the show at all. So.
All right, I won't spoil it for anyone else out there that may not have seen it, but yeah, more people should have died.
Yeah, like that's the thing with like shows and stuff like that. Like, because shows are a lot different from movies. Meaning, like at least you have like you have more time to create these stories and these characters, but then you have the problem of being able to have a satisfying conclusion. And almost very few shows are able to stick that landing.
Oh yeah.
Or just kind of the need to just keep going and going.
Yeah.
And going. That's kind of the issue that I have with like a lot of shows is that in like padding. I feel like they're kind of padding in some of the episodes. Like just trying to push things along to just keep the seasons going is like, this really didn't need to be a full episode.
Yeah. Very few. Like to me, the only like the shows that like sticking in my head that like they stick that landing really well is Breaking Bad and The Sopranos. I think those are like one of the few shows that like it started strong, but the shows aren't that long. They knew when to leave.
Can I add Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Iconic.
Yes.
The fight between Zuko and Azula,
Yeah.
some of the most beautiful animation ever.
Yes.
Now, a film I will not stand on a hill and die for would be the live action. I do remember watching that in theaters with my dad, and like he liked any movie, and that was one of his ones like, this sucks, this is terrible. Like, can we leave?
That shit made me laugh when it was like one of the Earthbenders that did like 15 moves just
just
from one rock to come. It was like, could he just pick it up and chuck it at that point?
I feel really bad for the kid actor because I can remember like on Nickelodeon at the time, wasn't there like a kind of a sweepstakes to become Aang? Like so the student,
Sir, it's Ankh.
and like he finally got it, and it's kind of. I mean, I don't know if that kind of just like cursed the rest of his acting career like it did for whoever the guy was young Anakin in episode 1.
Christopher Hutchins?
Yeah.
No, that's a totally other actor.
You're talking about young guy.
Hayden something.
Hayden, yeah. No.
Not
like
Hayden
Christensen.
Just the kid.
Oh, just when he was
the kid.
child.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, I remember. I think I saw like a Instagram. It's like he's in jail.
Man, that kind of sucks though, because like that's the thing about like if you're tackling like a big project and stuff like that, you have to get millions of people who are watching your shit on a microscope. And if you just like diverge or try to do a different take on it, geez, do people attack you?
Yeah.
Like that would be like, to me, like a Star Wars project. That would be something like I'd be interested in like in taking on, but also I'd be like very kind of like we're walking on a minefield sort of way.
Yeah.
Because like there's some people that know like like pretty much every detail. There's Wikipedia on like background characters, and they have like 15 pages of lore.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's like over 50 like Star Wars books too, in addition with the films and stuff.
I think
that
like, there's 50 that are like canon at this point, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't non-canon. I think I had like some of those at some point. It's some of the non-canon stuff got like really, really stupid. There was like one with, I don't know if you remember in episode 4, you know, where like they get R2D2 and C3PO, and like, you know, this little droid that's going along and like blows up or whatever, right? Well, of course, in non-canon, someone's fanfic, the droid was force sensitive, and he self-destructed to because he knew that Luke needed to get R2D2 to continue the plot along. It's just like truly some meta stuff. He knew where all this stuff was going somehow.
The midichlorians kicked in.
Yeah, the midichlorians. Yeah,
the midichlorians.
Like, how would you guys tackle something? Would you guys even want to tackle something like that? Like something that's like already has a huge fan base, that's like millions of people from all around the world.
I know I would be down for it, but I know it would have to be like an IP that I am passionate about.
Yeah,
because that's the big thing. Like, I know there's been some recent interviews from Marvel showrunners and stuff where it's like, oh yeah, we were told to not read the comics. Like Rian Johnson, when he did Last Jedi, he's like, yeah, I didn't really like Star Wars much growing up.
But why? Why do something that'll be like, don't read the source material?
Yeah, it's really odd. And apparently they have like a screenwriters boot camp. It's like how to write for Marvel, and that irks me a little bit too.
Yeah.
But it would have to be an IP that I'm like really passionate about, because the fans will know if the filmmaker behind it doesn't really care for it. And it's like, in one respect, that could probably be a strength, because it's like you don't have any skin in the game, but also it's like you still need to find a way to navigate it with respect. But I think if you find the people who are passionate about that IP, it's just going to be that much better. It's like, why else would you be in it?
Yeah, I mean, objectively speaking, there wouldn't be like, I guess I would prefer not to be on like work on like an existing IP, just kind of the fact that like I want to just do something unique and original. If I could do a unique and original take on the IP that's still being faithful to the source material, and it's something that I actually enjoy, then yeah. But I don't really think there would actually be too many situations for that. Like, I mean, I do love Star Wars, so maybe, you know, but it would probably be something kind of, you know, like along the lines of like Rogue One, more than like, you know, doing a full blown episode. But also, objectively speaking, I don't think they should have even done. I don't even think they should have done 7, 8, and 9. I know that like Lucas originally wanted to do that, and like, you know, it's fine, it's whatever. But oh my god, don't get me started on episode.
Honestly, out of the new Star Wars, Rogue One was probably my favorite. Like, I think that definitely was the best one.
And, like, I loved episode 6 as a kid, because I loved like the redemption of Darth Vader taking down the Emperor, and all that was just completely just thrown for the wayside, because, you know, somehow Palpatine returned. So
somehow
Palpatine returned.
All that, like, you know, dynamic story between these two characters, it doesn't matter.
I think the biggest thing with that was like with the whole thing with Snoke and stuff like that, and it was being built so much, and then he's just like a jabroni that just gets sliced off.
I will say, objectively speaking, I actually don't mind the subversion with Snoke dying. But I think that's just because I didn't want a Palpatine. I literally, you know, he was literally a Palpatine clone. I didn't want that. And then they actually brought Palpatine back. So it's like, I don't know. It's like, I kind of just prefer they wouldn't have done it at all to begin with. But, you know, like, I don't know. It's kind of cool when she did the, like, kamikaze, you know, hyperspace thing. That was cool, I guess. You know, I think I can count 2 things in episode 9 that I actually enjoyed, and one of them was like when Kylo Ren did like the shrug thing, because Han Solo did that, and the droid's name was Dio, and that reminded me of JoJo. That's it. The only 2 things, not a single thing else in that I enjoyed. Not even like Johnny Williams. I think he was just phoning it at that point. Literally 2 things. One of them is a droid named Dio.
Dude, I love that. So if you guys were given, like, for example, to pick any IP to do whatever you want with it, what would you pick?
X-Files.
Fuck
Yeah,
yes. I love that shit.
I actually because when I was sick with COVID a few years ago, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna binge watch X-Files to recover from COVID, and so I like binged the whole series and their film, even though it's just the X-Files, Fight the Future, that is one of my top 10 favorite sci-fi movies. It just checks every box for me, like government conspiracy, aliens, like tension, like it's one of my favorite movies. I would love the opportunity to do like a X-Files. I mean, the actors are a bit older now, and they did that. They did that like, not like a reboot, but they did like a few extra seasons. Yeah, and those seasons were like, it's not quite the same, but I still enjoyed it. But I would love the opportunity for like to play around the X-Files universe. Yeah,
I'd really have to like think about it, but I think I would want to do something that's kind of dormant and obscure that like not a lot of people know about that I can revive in a good way. Like I can bring it back to life and I could bring interest back to it, but I don't know what that is. I kind of have to. I think I'd have to just like look for it. I don't think I've seen it yet, but I'm sure I would find one. And once I would, that would be something kind of interesting, and that may be even a little bit more realistic too. It's like, hey, like a lot of people are forgetting about this. It's kind of dormant. There's less, I guess, risk associated in like rebooting it or continuing on with the story, right? Because a lot of people just aren't too aware of it or whatever. So, it's like if it goes well, great. Then a lot of people are interested in it. If it doesn't go, as good, well, nobody really cared about it that much to begin with. Yeah. That's my pitch to the producer.
I think it's interesting because I feel like you guys have like, you guys do personal stories and stuff like that. But you guys, I feel like, take it on in different directions. Like for you, it's more for you, Christian. I feel it's more of like personal stories and then the environment responds. And for Mike, I feel like it's like environment. The story is the environment, and then people respond.
Yeah.
I feel like that's interesting because I feel like you guys have that commonality where you guys do like these personal stories, but I feel like there's that difference of that.
Yeah, I guess that's psychology versus sociology, right? In a way.
Maybe. I know I love character, and it all boils down to the character. And I know it's like if I can have this character go through this journey and kind of come out the other side with at least a new realization, whether they change or not, at least if they have a new perspective or if they just acknowledge, then I know I would have done my job. But those are the kinds of stories I love to tell.
Like for you guys, what comes first? Does the story come first? Does the world come first? Or do the people, like the characters, come first?
I mean, I guess it kind of just depends, particularly what the project is in mind. If I'm like just kind of thinking sort of in the future with my next feature length one, what would come first in something like that? I'm sorry, what was the three options?
No, essentially like when you think of a movie and stuff like that, like of a project, what comes first to you? Does the world of the movie come first? Do the characters
like
come first?
In the process of creating it?
No, yeah, basically creating it. Like when when you're getting an idea, like this could be good for a film. Like
characters are usually the first thing. Then sort of the world around it. How do they react to the world, or how does the world react to them?
Right. Do you feel like with these characters, do they have like some basis on actual people, or do you like inspire them more like?
Oh yeah. I mean, like everything, subconsciously or not, is sort of like an inspiration from something else. Things are kind of just like hodgepodge together pieces of different characters, both in real life and in other like fiction, and that could be said from those other things that you inspire from. Everything's kind of just like little bits and pieces of something else. I mean, of course, with like real life inspiration, no one's as crazy as they are in films. Most people aren't. There's a couple exceptions, but
Florida might be the exception.
Yeah. But yeah, like it's
Tiger King.
But yeah, I think it's one of the things too. Is like, even if I think like this is solely original, then like maybe like 2 months later, it's like, oh, that's kind of what I got inspired from. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What about you, Christian?
Character. Like, we're like an idea for a film that can come from anywhere. Like, I'll just be chilling out, and then I just get like an idea for a scene, and I'm like, oh, that'd be a cool scene. Like, what's a film that we can kind of build around it to give this scene the most impact possible? And it's like, and I see the scene really clearly in my head. It's like, okay, I know where the character's at this point in time, so I really dive into that scene and kind of figure out, okay, this is where they're at this point. Who are they before and after this? And that's kind of the trajectory for the character work. But I always go character, plot, then I go into the actual writing of the script. And the characters, they can come from anywhere. I know for my new feature, one of the characters, she's like a culmination of like Annie Murphy in Schitt's Creek mixed with the lead actress from the movie Scrambled, mixed with Reese Witherspoon's character in Legally Blonde. It's like, so it's kind of like taking inspiration from these different things, but still kind of giving it its own little flavor.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Because like sometimes, like, do you like when it comes to character arcs and stuff like that? Do you discover some stuff as you're writing, or do you have like an already like a set idea as soon as that pops in? Like, I want this. This is basically the mission of this character. He has to do this and that, and or like do you like saying like, oh, but if you like sometimes you wonder like, I wonder how he would interact with this character. Like you kind of web it like that.
I guess both. Like with Polybius, we had the arcs figured out pretty early on, and then we kind of built things from there. So there wasn't like too much change, at least with Hudson, because that was kind of the primary, like side of the story that I was doing. I already kind of like had it envisioned in my mind just from the get-go. We already had the ending for sure. The ending was kind of the first thing that we wanted, more or less, is the idea, then the ending, then. So then we're working the arc, or I'm working the arc from the other way around. So, kind of going from the end, then going back to the beginning. So, but other films that I've done, yeah, sometimes they'll kind of change along as we go. Kind of just depends, honestly.
Right. Like, and I feel like here, like especially like in Florida, like I think we have a lot of free reign to do a bunch of cool and interesting stuff. Only because like the way we're set up, we have such interesting like environments, and stuff like that. Cause like how South Florida is completely different than Central and then North and stuff.
I will say that with the caveat that from my own experience, people can kind of be dicks when it comes to giving permission to stuff. I think I told you about, particularly there's a certain location that I wanted to do,
right?
And he said no, and I offered a price, and he said no. So I was like, kind of just for the hell of it, right? So I I get a friend's phone, I call him up, like maybe like 4 or 5 months later, and I say that I'm basically someone from Hollywood, and I give him a ridiculous amount that I would be willing to pay for it. Like I don't have the amount we're talking about, an absurd amount. He still would just say no, and he said no. Like it's just a lot of people kind of just. There's a lot of like, I guess, just old boomers that are just sitting on like really interesting property that they don't want anyone to film, and they kind of just want to sit on it until they die, and then when they die, it's going to get demolished into a parking lot. Because that's kind of it's a shame. Like Polybius was set in the '80s, and I think we're starting to lose a lot of that unique aesthetic, particularly in like Pinellas County. Is like just things are just being demolished real soon for just all this stupid like modern day structure, shopping malls and stuff that like nobody even goes to anymore. That's just gonna just be sitting there. I don't know. I think it's kind of a shame. It kind of pisses me off. I don't really understand why some of these people do that. Like, I mean, I'm not going to say anyone in particular, just in case those particular people watch it, but there's some particular places in Tampa that are really, really unique that I've tried to reach out before. And it's not a money thing. It's not a project thing. You could be whoever, You could be Martin Scorsese, and they're still gonna
tell you.
Yeah, they just. I guess I don't really. I want to know like what's kind of going on in their minds, because they're not doing anything with the property. It's just sitting there rotting away, much like them. And I just, I just sound good at
Shots fired.
Damn, homeboy, tell me how you really feel. I mean, what do you guys think is like? Yeah, that is a huge challenge on that. Like, what do you guys think it is like the biggest challenge for like filmmaking and stuff like that?
Definitely. At the level that we're at is permits. Honestly.
Yeah. But funding's at every level. I mean, Martin Scorsese still has trouble finding funding for his films, and it's like you're Martin Scorsese, and he's still having trouble.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sure. Yeah, and I'm sure he still has issues trying to get permits for certain locations.
Oh yeah. So, I'm sure. Yeah, and. Yeah, it's just the logistical nightmare of everything, because especially at this level, it's like, people are working day jobs and people like have families, and it's like, just also just the logistics of it. It's like just scheduling. If you could be a good scheduler, then I think you'll be a good filmmaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you start out, you have to be a man of many hats too. You have to be like PA job. And,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, on Achille Infatuated.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, logistical hurdles, you know, with like Danny Miller's where we're filming out in the middle of nowhere. There's no cell service. So I'm trying to get all these extras to come out here. And they have to meet us at GPS locations.
Yeah.
And then have to get drove out through a truck because it's, you know, it's just kind of off-roading. Yeah, with your tire that popped and all that.
Yeah.
And you know, like some of these people, they probably, with some of them, they did. They like drove out there. They saw the situation, like, now we're turning back, and you know, like it's just absolutely. I mean, I don't blame.
I'm not saying like because like I knew you, so like I was like, oh, this is fine. But like if you get like, hey Christian, we have a great opportunity for you, stuff like that. It's like, oh great, send me the address. It's coordinates.
Yeah.
And someone's, oh by the way, there's no signal, 10 miles any direction.
Yep.
No, any cell phone service. I'm like, okay, man. Yeah, should I bring my own roofies too?
I know. Yeah, that's why. Like when you're getting people, it's like you just have to be so transparent. Be like, no, this is the situation. This is the location. I'm telling you this now, so you're not surprised later.
Right. And I did, but some of them, honestly, some of them just don't really listen. That's another thing that I realized.
You have to tell them 5 times.
Yeah, like don't. Just a general rule of thumb: don't send someone like a long text if you have like 5 things to tell them. Shoot a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because if you do a long one, they're not going to read all the way through.
Yeah.
So it's better to just shoot them little short ones, kind of just periodically. That way that they can check it all out, and they're not like, oh, well, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that's like that is definitely, because I've heard you're not the guys that are the first ones to tell me about this, but there's a lot of complaining being like, yo, I clearly put on these instructions and no one followed shit. From like,
but hey, that's the name of the game. It's always going to be something, but you know, makes it fun.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, we needed 30 extras, we got 12. Okay.
Yeah, and and like that was kind of like I realized that too, that that I wanted 30, and realistically I was going to get 15, and I think we got 15. So, but you know, it kind of worked out, I guess, better in that particular situation because we only had so many guns for the shootout scene. So at least we could be more like picky with the cool kind of guns to sort of fit the aesthetic more. So
yeah, one thing I like, you know, like on your sets is like all the stuff we have is practical.
Yeah,
and I think that it's such a new like. Because a lot of people are scared of using like actual firearms and stuff like that. But to me, like realism brings so much of a better effect on it than like CGI for the most part can ever do.
And, and like Tuesday, me and Blake are going to be going up to Gainesville to get our like official armory license. And then we'll be official armors, which will be cool because then I'll be kind of like branching out, providing my service for like other people in the Florida area because there isn't a whole lot of armor, so that's good. It's great just for the fun of it, but it's also great to get that networking in. You know, it's like, hey, I'll be your armor. You know, maybe you can help me out on my next set.
Oh yeah,
you know,
armors are the chills guy on set. I'm so for real. I was on a project and we had an armorer on set, and it was so funny because you could tell who was comfortable with talking about firearms and who wasn't. Because you know, I grew up in a small town. I was in the military, so it's like I'm fairly comfortable around firearms. And it was me, my one friend, this other guy. We were just chatting with the armor. He's like, yeah, there's a gun show. You guys should come down. It's like, oh yeah, that sounds awesome. And we were just like talking about guns, like through 57 Magnums and stuff. And but like everybody else, I like looked around, and like the second AD was just staring at me, like, and it's like, it's okay. We're just talking.
Yeah, because like I mean, especially now, like even like through the Rust situation, that a lot of people will probably be just very intimidated of just like firearms and stuff like that.
I mentioned to Blake, it just even the optics of it, as silly as it sounds, he wanted to do a Western, and there's that kind of like Western place that you mentioned that he wanted to do, and I'm like, okay, I know this sounds stupid, but optically speaking, you may have a hard time trying to like get people. It's like, oh, it's a Western and there's going to be firearms, you know, like kind of just kind of what goes into people's minds, just like subconsciously, you know, I mean, you just got to be aware of kind of like the optics of that sort of situation.
I remember when that happened too, like, cause that was during my senior year, and that was, everybody was posting and everything. It's like, That was heartbreaking. That was a situation that just shouldn't have even happened.
Yeah, because I mean,
there was multiple steps.
Yeah,
That
I mean, because to me, like live ammunition should have never been on set
exactly.
Yeah,
to begin.
not even a question.
Absolutely silly. There's no reason, even for like, you could, even if you had particular shots where you wanted to see like the bullet end, you could just get dummy. You know, they got money. They can easily do that. It's not even a question like,
And
oh, well, you know, we can find.
When you're taking the course, isn't because if you want to use like a real firearm, isn't the protocol to take out the firing pin?
So this is kind of like a weird situation where like a lot of people don't realize, but these armor courses aren't what you think they are.
Okay.
They're not. They don't really have anything to do with film. So like basically, and I kind of don't want to. I don't want to say too much of it because it kind of just. I don't want more stuff to sort of be introduced.
Mhm.
But when the police ask for like an armorer's license, this armorer's license doesn't have too much to do with filming. It's more about gun disassembly, manufacturing, cleaning, and that sort of general rules. So you then apply that into that. So they're not going to be going over anything about filming. That's up to you to put in that stuff. If you're referring to removing the firing pin, you could if you're not going to be shooting blanks. Of course, if you're going to be shooting blanks, you have to keep the firing pin in there. But like, you know, in that particular scene in Rust, it was you know, like a single action army or something. You know, you can easily just get dud rounds that the people just use for practice. That you know, there's no powder in there. It's just one singular object that looks like the bullet in the casing. You can get those really, really cheap. But from what I understand, they were also like kind of just shooting it out on the range with real bullets, and yeah, just really, really kind of irresponsible stuff too. Because I mean, Alec Baldwin was the producer as well,
Yeah.
so he's kind of like doubly at fault. Because yeah, I mean, obviously the armor is too, but the producer shouldn't have even. Obviously, the producer was aware that live rounds were on set. There's no way you can't. I don't care if you're in the middle of desert, you can hear the difference between live round and not one. So he's definitely doubly at fault for that. I'd say he's more at fault for being a producer and not putting an end to that situation before it could have, you know, got out of hand.
Like to you, like how's your experience like basically giving like actual firearms to people that like you don't know and you don't know like their competency or like how their mannerism or their temperament is when it comes to firearms, because there's also people with like, you know, with the actors that have like various range of experiences with firearms, you know, just
right. So with Polybius, where there was more time spent with firearms, we would take them out to the range. You know, the lead actors were. It was really the lead actors only that were firing. No, there's a couple scenes without, but we would take all those people to the range. When you're dealing with like a short, then like prior experience with firearms, prior military experience was kind of some stuff that I was looking at, particular, you know, like on backstage and all that, trying to kind of gauge it. Of course, you want to let them know the situation, and then even there, you know, we went through firearm safety course. You know, everyone is going to be firing the blanks beforehand and aware of it. Everyone knows to keep the gun on safe beforehand, and you know, if they're not going to be in the scene, they don't need to be holding, you know, the gun and all that stuff. I haven't really had any, you know, issues with people that are kind of stupid about it, but I'm also relatively selective with who I'm going to get for that to begin with. So
you already have like a vibe off of it. Like, how do you go? Like,
yeah, like, you know, they give me some information about them, and then that kind of helps out. And then we kind of go from there. And, you know, so like, I guess this would be like a theoretical situation if someone was to somehow pass all that information and we're doing, you know, like they're doing like blank practice either on set or taking out to the range, and they're just being really irresponsible about it. Then yeah, I guess we're gonna have a talking, and you know, if worse comes to worse and they're still acting up, yeah, so they're out. It's too much of a liability, and then we'll just go from there. Because it's obviously like, oh, if worse comes to worse, then we're done for that day, as opposed to worse comes to worse, then there's an accident. So, you know,
because that's like even a hidden problem as a director. Because at the end of the day, you are hiring like, well, some people you wind up knowing, but like originally, especially if you come like you, Christian, you were like new to the area for a while, like you're hiring a bunch of strangers.
Yep.
You don't know who these people are. Like, you don't know if these people could be like assholes, or some people who could just like disrupt set or have, you know, bad temperament. So like, it's one of those things that like you have to surround yourself with people that like you have no idea who these people are.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate, honestly. Like, I've heard some horror stories about different crew members, different actors, and all that. I haven't had a single actor, single crew member that's like giving me any issues. Everyone's pretty much just been fun. There was, I guess, like one minor thing, but it didn't even have anything to do with me. It was just like some beef on Twitter afterwards. But like that's just between two different actors, so like, whatever. But yeah, dude, I've heard some horror stories about that, and I kind of wonder like what I would do in that situation, because I usually don't go on other people's sets because I'm like directing, producing, but I kind of like imagine like what if I was, and what if I was in that situation having to deal with that person. I feel like I'd kind of have a I guess it depends who the person is. If it's like the director's just being an absolute dick to people, I feel like it would be my responsibility to step up and speak to them about that and resolve the issues. I mean, you have to do that. If there was a situation on set where there's a dispute between two people, then yeah, I have to resolve it, because there's kind of like a general cloud of vibes going on set, particularly with the actors. And
Yeah.
the way that if it's kind of a bad set and like one of the actors having a bad time, it's going to bleed on through to everyone else, and then everyone else is just, you can feel it, you can see it in the scenes. Everyone's not having a good time. You got to address that ASAP and just get that done with, get it out of there. So
Oh yeah. Especially and if you're a director too, it's like you set the tone for the set. It's like if the director's calm, cool, collected, the producers are calm, cool, collected. I mean, still be clear with your crew, let them know what's going on. But yeah, I've been on some sets where communication was not clear, and it just tainted the whole. Like, it's supposed to be fun. Like, granted, yes, filming is stressful, but it's still fun because it's like, okay, we have this team of people that are working on how to overcome a problem. But if there's a situation where the cinematographer has beef with the director, or the producer has beef with someone else, it's like, guys, we're wasting precious energy on the wrong situation. We're supposed to be learning how to come together and get this shot or get this setup done, and we can't just be haggling over bullshit.
have you ever had that happen on your set before?
I I've been a cinematographer for a feature film, and it's been a very stressful situation.
Don't want to disclose too much.
No, yeah. It's just different priorities for different people, and those clash. And it's like, that's the one thing for your department heads. It's like everybody has to have the clear objective. Like, hey, we're going in on this idea, and things change along the way. But it's like, all right, so even though we had this detour, how do we still kind of land on our mark? And when you have leadership that doesn't care, or they're okay with complacency, that really irks me. But, and I mean, me, I'm really, I try to be collaborative as possible, and listen to everybody and still keep a positive vibe on set. But it does get to a point where it's like, all right, I need a bit more commitment from you. But yeah, and I've heard some horror stories from some other sets. I know there was a set in college where the cinematographer had beef with the director. So by the end of the first day, the crew was basically, you're either team cinematographer or team director. And yeah, that not conducive to a good set.
I'm just imagining like the crew's just wearing, you got like the team Jacob, team whatever.
Yeah. And I remember one time on Fading, because the location we were shooting in, we were there was a ton of like natural light and everything, and so the gaffer, he's like, I don't know if I need to be here. And he, there was no mouse or anything. He's like, I don't know if I need to be here. There's a lot of natural light here. Like, I'm not really doing much anyway. So, like, I don't want to take up, like, more food and space. And I'm like, no, yeah, that makes sense. But it was just the optics, because I was sitting in a chair, kind of, and I was a bit heavier at the time, too. And I had, like, this big, like sweater on, and I was just sitting like a mob boss. Like, we were, like, having this conversation. He's a great friend. And I remember the makeup artist came in, and she was like, I do not want to be in this room right now. I'm like, no, it's fine. Trust me. Like, he's just telling me he can go. Like, there's no like ill will or anything, but it was just a funny situation.
So like, how do you like, how was that situation that like people were split up into teams? Like, how were you able to like bring that together? Like,
oh, that wasn't my set. That was another set. Yeah. My friend who's an editor, she was a crew member on that set, and she just told me about it. Like, one weekend we were grabbing some lunch at SCAD. But yeah, like, especially in film school, you meet a lot of interesting characters.
Yeah, dude. I was talking with like Blake about this. Is like kind of the irony is that it's usually like the crew members, not the actors that are like causing all the drama. It's like the actors are the ones that went to drama school.
Yeah.
But they're not the ones that's causing the drama most of the time. It's kind of just beef between. I guess it's just like artistic clashes or whatever. It's like no, it's got to be this way. No, it's got to be this way, and
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
And the big thing too, I think, if you're clear with your communication, and because when you're on set, it's like you want to know like the people who are leadership. It's like you want to know that they know what they want. And I think a lot of tension on set comes from when there is an indecisive director, cinematographer, like whatever. It's like if someone's like indecisive, that can cause a lot of tension because it's like we need a direction, we need to know what our mark is so we can work towards it. And if you're waffling on that, then that gets everybody anxious because it's like, we're gonna go 3 hours over.
Yeah, yeah, because that's always like the cause of it. And sometimes like it feels like everyone comes here and prepared, and that if there's one or two people prepared, it can throw off the entire production.
Exactly. That's why I like to rehearse if I can, or at least like talk with the actor, be like, hey, let's talk about the scene, like even the night before. It's like, hey, just get on the phone with me for like 30 minutes just so that way we can make sure we're on the same page, so that way we can come to set tomorrow instead of worrying about how to find it. It's like, okay, we know what we're looking for, and let's have some fun with it and see if we can put some curve on the ball. Yeah. Communication is key.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I mean, to me, like that's one of those things that like everyone has to have the same goal in mind at least.
Yes.
So and know what the path is. Because otherwise, like if people were going in different directions, it's going to be seamless and stuff like that. Yeah, like that. Yeah. That like it's going to be wandless and aimless and all that. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I don't. That would suck to be like in a situation where the director just doesn't know what they want in particular. Yeah. It's like, well, it could be this. Well, it could be that. It's like, well, you should have figured that out by now.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and things change on the day, but it's like you need to know your mark. And I like to call it an anchor. It's like, all right, we have a father-son climax. Like this is the big emotional scene, and I know exactly what I want the audience to feel, and I have a very clear idea of how we're going to get there. But if things change, it's all going to change so we can hit that mark.
Right.
And I'm very clear. It's like, this is our mark, people.
Right.
And however we get there, I'm open.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder when I see like a film or a particular scene that's like it's not done in the best of ways. Sometimes you wonder like I wonder if there is like a better version of this, but because of a mess up or stuff like that, it had to been cut or just thrown away and stuff like that. Like I don't know, like from performance wise, like have you ever seen like a?
I would say there's never in the history of anything ever been something where every single cylinder has been firing at 100% perfection. Everything has gone right. It may seem that way. You may have your films like this is a perfect 10 out of 10, but like theoretically speaking, I don't think that that's possible. I don't think it's possible that every single thing that was intended and every single like neuron firing off at the same time, just everything clicks together 100%. Like it's theoretically possible, but I don't like. Right. I mean, I guess it kind of just for me in general, like in terms of rating films, I don't actually ever have like a 10 out of 10 film. I'd say that that's impossible, but it's everyone's goal to try and achieve the impossible. Right. You're never going to get to it, but just keep going as close as you can to, I don't know, the infinite or whatever.
I think it was like a Scorsese masterclass. I think he said like if you get 80 to 90% of what you imagined on the screen, you succeeded.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're never gonna get 100%.
Because that's one was like almost like an inside joke for like actors that like when you do a take and you feel really confident about this is gonna be good. The joke is like it's gonna get cut. It's not gonna get used. No shot.
Or kind of just even I mean it's like editing too, where it's like wow, this is really great on camera, and then you like look at it again, it's like it doesn't really work with the rest of it. It's like damn, it kind of sucks. It's like damn, I actually like that take, but it just doesn't work with kind of the rest of it.
Yeah.
So.
That's why whenever I'm usually I was working with we were doing another day on that shoot with that director, But we were working with kids, and working with kids, you got
That's a challenge on its own.
You got to be like so open and welcoming, and it's like, hey, like, and I was so happy because there's this one girl, she's like 10 years old. She's like, I want to be a horror actress, and I'm like, okay. And we were filming in a cemetery. She's like, what if we did a shot over here? And like, she was like coming up with so many ideas, and I'm like, you're the one, you're the kid. But yeah, and there was an older actor, and I told her, I'm like, if you feel like silly and uncomfortable doing it, you're right where you need to be, and it's okay, and you just need to feel that way for 30 seconds while the camera's rolling. After that, you can go back to feeling, but you have to be in that place where it's like, I don't know, it feels a little silly. It's like, yeah, but it looks good on the camera, and that's all that matters. It's gonna feel silly, but that's where that's how where you're supposed to be. I can't. But I got tongue-tied there.
Yeah, that's one of those things. That working with children is like a completely different thing.
Oh, yeah.
That you have to make sure you have a lot of patience.
Yeah.
And make sure, like, that they're all good and stuff like that, because they can get distracted by the smallest thing, and then all right, I'll see you later.
Yeah. On that set, there was a 3-year-old, a 10-year-old, and like I think like a 15-year-old. And the 3-year-old, adorable, but yeah, it was got a wrangler. Like, hey, mom, can you get it? Get her to sit up a little bit or something.
It did help that, like, with Denny Miller's, where some of them even actually like had ADHD already. So like kids usually have ADHD, but like already like diagnosed or whatever. So like kind of just like you gotta get all the energy, or like you can have all the energy, just put it into the performance. Find a way to channel it into that. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think we were pretty lucky with who we got. Two of them in particular was like, oh man, these guys are like really good. Like I think they're gonna have like genuinely a career in the future. Like if they're this good now at this age, who knows? But there was one PA that we had when we were working with the kids. I could tell he was getting kind of frustrated, trying to get them to do stuff, and they weren't really following his commands or anything. It's, I don't know, a little bit funny.
I remember I was on a short. And I was just a grip. I was helping my friend Nick, who's a gaffer, amazing gaffer, and he just brought me on. It was like a year after graduation, and the story was about a police officer who goes to visit his brother. There's been like a string of murders in the area, like kids. So they had like this. I think he was like either 11 or 12. And the mom was on set and everything, and that was a big learning experience too, because like the kid was supposed to be like duct taped to like the bed and everything. So he's like, all right, like as we're duct taping him, he's like, are you okay? Let me know if you feel uncomfortable. It was.
I'm guessing you were shooting a comedy.
Yeah, no, it was a horror film.
Wow. Yeah, I got it one of two ways.
But no, yeah, you learn a lot about how to direct everybody when you work with like kid actors.
Right.
I haven't attempted to animals yet. I know that's another challenge.
Yeah, that's probably another challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, we had one with Polybius. I don't even remember if it was like, if I remember correctly, we took out the takes of it because there's this little dog, and she would always bark no matter what. But then literally the time we needed her to bark, not barking, too scared to bark.
Yep. Yeah, the opposite problem for when we shot
know. Did we tell you this?
No, I don't think so.
So we were shooting Achille Infatuated, and it's like it's the last scene of the movie. So it's like and we spent such a long time on that scene, but I think it came out great in the end. But my neighbor has this dog, and it's just yapping away. And like the actress Jackie, she's like, maybe it'll like calm down in 20 minutes. 45 minutes later, it's still barking.
Yeah.
No,
non-stop.
We had that problem with Polybius. There was this dog that just annoyed the hell. Xavier made a remark because he was the FBI agent. He's like, "Oh, if you would have gave me some blanks in the pistol, I could have just shot it up in the air and it would have gone to be quiet." But we did that. We did that with Danny Miller's, where there's like some birds.
Oh, birds! Yeah,
he just fired the blank and it just stopped. It's like, oh, there we go.
There you go.
That's just good.
You never know what's going to come up as a problem on set. It's hilarious.
What a Florida response, though. The gun will fix it. The solution.
Yeah.
So like, it's funny because like, for you guys, like, I know you guys have both tackled different genres and stuff like that. Which one do you think is like the easiest and like the hardest like genre to like pull off?
I mean, in a general term, I would say that horror is usually kind of like the go-to thing for, people at this level. And then comedy, and then you'd go to like serious stuff. Sci-fi, of course, being the hardest thing to do at this level. So I mean, I guess that would kind of be the same for me. I don't really want to do like a generic slasher film. Polybius was kind of like almost in a way kind of like commentary on the idolization of that kind of stuff. It's a bit too easy for me, and like I didn't want to do a comedy at first. Like, oh well, Clerks and everyone just it's kind of like the go-to way. It was like, I get some funny ideas. I want to make a comedy. Fuck it. But I mean, horror and comedies, just in general,
easy to shoot. But I feel like they're hard to execute too.
Oh yeah. I mean, like you can still even if like slasher is the easiest one to like break out. Well, most of them are shit.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of the times, like they're easy, kind of like when it comes to a production and even like money wise. But like you need to have very tight writing.
There is very few slasher films, as far as I'm concerned, that are genuinely good, and the rest are just pale imitations or just trying to use certain IPs to get a certain maybe bear that enjoys honey. Red shirt.
I heard the second one though, like it has a lot of good traction on it.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like it is because it was just so jarring to see something like that, and then like when people got used to the vibe, I guess people just started.
Aren't they doing one with like Steamboat Mickey now, right?
Yeah, because the copyright ended.
It's a copyright.
You already know those dudes. They already had everything ready. They're just waiting.
Yeah, that was on standby. No shot. They probably knew like a year or two ahead of time that I was going to go in public domain. There was nothing Disney could do about it.
Yeah.
What else is coming into public domain soon that we can turn into an obligatory slasher film?
There's a lot of things that are like very much like in public domain that like people don't really use like that. I know Sherlock Holmes is public domain.
Like
Zorro is.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Dracula, I believe, maybe Frankenstein. I know. I don't know about Dracula. 100%.
I would need to check on this.
Yeah, but I know Zorro and Sherlock Holmes. I know they're in public domain.
Yeah,
which is interesting because like they're very iconic characters. But you don't really see them in anything that's outside of like big productions.
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of slasher films and the lower budget, they just go for always the same thing. Like and to be fair, I haven't seen it, but from what I've heard of the Cocaine Bear one, like that's a funny story. I knew of it beforehand. I wish they would have taken it to like a Coen Brothers like dark comedy kind of thing. But from what I understand, they just took the generic slasher kind of route. So
yeah,
disappointing.
I saw Cocaine Bear in theaters.
Yeah,
that's $15. I'm not getting that.
So was the film not fun?
It was fun, but like I like actively lost brain cells.
Oh shit, it's like that.
Yeah, and to answer the question, I think because I do the same. Like I tend to like blend dramas. Like I know for Akili Infatuated, I wanted to start it off as like a rom-com and then like slowly transition it into like a thriller.
Shifts. That's
like, and I wanna practice like nailing that. I think Akili Infatuated will be a very great exercise in that.
Yeah.
In the next short film I want to do, The Last First Date. But I think in terms of like hardest genres would be drama, like a straight drama, because at least with comedy, it's like you can still kind of rely on the sense of humor and the gags and the jokes depending on what kind of comedy you're doing. But like a straight drama, it's like you have to have excellent writing and excellent performances to have an audience like lock into it and give a shit. But comedy is also difficult just because
everyone's kind of different.
Yeah, everyone like has a very different sense of humor. You might like The Benchwarmers, but not like Anchorman or something. I love both those films. But I do love like suspense, thriller, horror. Those are like my favorite genres to play with, and I just like psychological stuff. Yeah.
Horror is one of those things that like I think the problem with modern horror movies is that they do so much showing in revealing that like there's almost no more mystique on it.
Yeah.
Like one of the pinnacles of horror movies to me, it was like the original Halloween with Michael Myers. And one of the biggest mysteries on it is basically how was this individual able to like teleport basically from point A and point B and not even know like when he was described by the officer, was it Lupin or
Loomis?
Yeah. That monologue was that he's pure and simply evil. Like that shit like made you feel like this is. He almost feels like an entity on its own, but this is without even someone even like saying that it is. Like you just know that like this person is beyond normal.
Yeah, because I think because in a lot of modern horror films, I feel like people are just very direct, and it's like, he's evil, and it's like in that monologue, he's like, no, I tried to find the humanity in him to bring it out, and I just couldn't find any. And I think like approaching it that way, it was like, yeah.
I just thought about too. I guess if you wanted to add there, particularly to like the low budget things, difficult things, would be period piece. Particularly, the further back you go, obviously the harder is. As much as I was bitching about difficulty of 80s, well, obviously 1980s is a hell of a lot easier than 1880s, and then 1780s, and keep going further and further back.
We have certain buildings like that are like from like the Victorian era. Right. They're very few and far in between, like you were saying. Like a lot of them are getting demolished.
You kind of have to like shrink down the scope of the world because there's going to be certain locations that are still left, but you just won't be able to show too much of the outside world stuff. So you just have to like shrink further and further down as you go. And I mean, once you get to like caveman, well, that doesn't matter because you can kind of do that anywhere. Just go into the woods. Yeah.
Go to cave.
Yeah. Find a cave. Well, actually, no. Yeah, there isn't any caves in Florida, so yeah, that would be difficult. I think Tennessee has a lot of caves. So you can go there.
So like that's the thing too that's happening now is like now. Like when it comes to like Hollywood and stuff like that and those big productions, they'll usually put things in like a huge studio and they'll build the set inside of it. But now with the coming of AI and stuff, like now it doesn't seem like a lot of people even need to find these locations that it's popped up there. But like I was saying about like with AI and that essentially like it's very algorithmic. So basically like it can duplicate, but it can never create something new. And I feel like when introducing it to the film industry, like it could be a tool, and that's what it is. Like I think that basically the cat's out of the bag. Like once something is out, like it's kind of hard to let's revert back. Like we're not going to go back to that. But then at the same time, I feel like it could definitely stagnate creativity.
Yeah. Well, that being said, and I could be wrong. It's just briefly what I heard. I heard that they're trying to like pass some law that would essentially have to say that you have to put like a little marker. This was made by AI or whatever. So that could possibly have some effect on it. But the main problem with AI is that eventually it's just going to start to replicate itself and then just going to start to get more and more bastardized.
Yeah, the dead internet theory. Yeah.
Would you like to explain that to everybody?
The dead internet theory. So yeah, generative AI, they reference real world, pieces of art to generate and compile it together to do it. But once it starts referencing itself, because like with Midjourney, a lot of bots are putting in prompts and stuff, and it's getting to the point where it reached this peak, but now it's starting to replicate all other AI art, and then it starts to devolve again. So there is like a bell curve to it. It's really, really interesting. Really? Like it gets to a point where they can't even recognize how a human body should be like shaped.
Have you seen this as an example that like now like it seems like AI is basically like copying itself?
I'll send you some TikToks. That's like all of my TikTok feed right now because started with Late Night with the Devil, that horror movie that just came out like a few weeks ago. Because they were under fire for using some transitional imagery for the news broadcast that the film is replicating. And then A24, they just released AI generated posters for Civil War. And there was a Netflix documentary that was also using generative AI for like transitional images and replicating scenes that didn't even actually happen. So it's like it's getting scary.
It is scary, but it's even like fascinating in certain aspects. Like, for example, like some people are using it to like duplicate people's voices and stuff like that. So what's happening is like someone like me who's into history, there'll be speeches by now Vladimir Lenin or Hitler that are translated into English, but like usually you see it in the subtitled context. But when you actually hear what they're actually saying, it's like, oh my god, it's like a whole different aspect of it, because now it's almost like feels like it's targeted towards like the English speaking population.
Yeah,
you basically get to see what have been like in that perspective, hearing that as like a Russian from the 1920s, hearing it from like that perspective. It was like, even like when in a subtitle context, there's almost like you're almost a little disconnected on it. But when you hear it like in a context that they're speaking English, it almost feels like it's almost has like a direction towards you.
Yeah. It's getting scary. I remember I was taking an editing class my sophomore year, and our professor, he showed us a Adobe like software event, and I think Jordan Peele was there because it was like right around the time Get Out was coming out, I believe. And Adobe developed a software where you speak like certain sentences into this program, and it studies the phonemes of your words, so that way, if you needed to adjust dialogue, you could actually delete a word, type it out, and then in that voice, it would be able to say that word. And they used Jordan Peele as an example. And of course, when it sounded like halfway decent, he's like, "Ah," and like everybody was clapping. I'm like, "This is This is the end.
Yeah.
We're on the way out." But AI does have at least some uses. I know they used it on Dune 2 to like track the eyes and stuff, but that's more like technical AI. I forget what the actual term, because there's generative AI. I forget what that term for it is, but it's like it can be a tool.
Yeah.
Essentially just advanced programming.
Exactly, yeah.
But when is it in from like it comes from being a tool to basically it does the majority of the work?
Yeah. It's a tough situation. Because I mean, like you said, these studios are risk averse and they want to cut corners where they can, and
because you don't want to be the person that stands back on it, because like it's like almost like when like photography was first introduced and people who are painters like refuse to consider it an art, and basically it's a fad. But it's the same thing they said about television, the same thing they said about film. Like basically like, but that's always a time, like it seems like technology always wins at the end. But like people like convenience, and people like to worry about less things along the way.
Yeah.
So like to have something that completes stuff.
At the same time, that's what's called survivorship bias, right? So like with like the automobile taking over the horse with like the combustion engine, well, there's like steam powered stuff that could have also tracked that way, that everyone's like, oh well, people that are just in steam powered engines, you guys are going to be left behind in history and all that stuff. As of right now, who knows, maybe steam power will come back. But so that could, we don't know necessarily that that's the case. Basically, it's kind of
it is
kind of like what I said before with like the good remakes. You're not aware that there was ones before. So like we're at this point with AI where it could continue to keep going along, or it may just completely fade off and people don't really talk about it in the future because like it's kind of just almost forgettable in a way. So we don't know as of yet.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. The next 10 to 15 years are going to be wild. I can just feel it.
Yeah, it's
because at least like with past technological advancements, it always had human control, and that's the case with any technological development. Like, if it gets in the wrong hands, but to have a piece of technology where it can think for itself and create its own decisions, to take that aspect of like human control out of it. Yeah, that's a scary place to be in. Like, imagine being like from the Stone Age to Bronze Age. I don't know my history that well, but it's like, imagine if like a sword back in that day could like, oh, I'm gonna fight for this soldier, and like, that'd be a scary.
There you go. There's your idea for a story. An AI club gets sent back in time to become a friend with a caveman, and the two of them have to interact.
You just have ChatGPT just write the whole script.
It's like that movie Rubber. It's just like a tire that's rolling.
Yo, I heard someone. It always felt like a spoof of a movie, but I was shocked to know like that's an actual thing.
Yeah, I told my dad about it, and he's just like, you could get your films made.
So like, here's the question though: can an AI create art?
No.
It can imitate, and it could give you like that texture and everything, but there's just like, even like, and I like look, and I like look at the best examples, and it's like, even then I'm like looking really close, and I'm like, it's just not something about it is just off.
Right.
Yeah, right. And I think it's just something innate in you that can like kind of distinguish it.
Well, art is like, to me, at the end of the day, it's communication. Yeah. Like I feel like when the reason why art ever existed was to tell a story of some kind. Like it's or express something, an idea.
Yeah, I guess like at the end of the day, there had, like, for me at least, art is passion. Like the person had to have an invested interest, like a passion in doing that. And AI doesn't have a passion, doesn't have like doesn't want to do it. Yeah. It just does it. Like it's not like I feel a certain way, therefore I do something. It's just I'm doing something. You know? Yeah. So I guess that's kind of like for me. That's kind of like the be all end all. Like doesn't have to be good art, but you know.
Yeah, and like going back to like communication too. It's like every piece of art has an opinion to it, and whether you agree with that opinion or not, it invites discussion. And like with AI, it's like how how does it come up? Like I guess maybe the deeper question would be, can AI have an opinion?
Yeah, could it have subtext?
Yeah, because like I feel like if it's referencing like all written material, because I know Google has been like scanning like every book ever like written into like their database. Google. But it's like, yeah, how does it come up with like an actual opinion? Because like, you know, a lot like some of the best films, it's like, you know, it makes you have a strong visceral reaction, and it's like that's the point.
Like Blade Runner's my favorite film, and
my favorite film.
I understand the empathy of the replicants, but my thing is like, once they get to that point, yes, we need to treat them as humans, but let's just make sure that we don't get to that point first. You know, we're not there yet, so we don't have to worry about the moral conundrum. We can unplug ChatGPT and not feel too bad about it.
For real, like. I also love how when the AI debate started like really picking up steam, people are like, oh, they're gonna go for like the technical jobs and just kind of like help streamline like manufacturing or like logistics. They're not gonna come for art.
Yeah. Everyone thinks they're safe.
The first thing is like art.
Everyone thought they were safe on that aspect. We have no idea where. I guess it is like that's the thing. What about like comes to telling the future and stuff like that? Like even like the most like profound people who've make predictions like things that are going to happen like 20, 30 years. They're always wrong. Yeah. And that's because there's so many outside factors that like we have no idea. We have no control over.
We're just out here giving our best guess. Sorry.
Well, speaking of best guests, thank you guys so much for showing up.
Oh, really great little move there from that. Nice.
That was a sick segue.
That's what you call improv. Do you guys have any links and stuff like that? Do you guys want to talk about any social plugs that you guys want to put out there?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say if you can, check out Gorilla Underground Productions on Instagram. We got our own website, gupfilms.com, gupfilms.com. We're going to be releasing a couple shorts soon, and I'll be working on the next feature-length film. Have a couple more shorts actually coming out this year, so stay tuned.
Yeah, and I know I'm going to be posting more on TikTok, Nutcase Films. I also have a YouTube channel, Nutcase Films, and got 2 short films coming out. One with you, Giovanni. Actually, both of them with you. So 2 short films.
Mine too. Both of them with you. Strange.
Someone's going to be like, "Oh, there's a fucking agenda behind it."
But I'm also going to do like a director's commentary and stuff for it too, just like for extra stuff. So, but yeah, got some big stuff coming, and going to get the website off the ground. So people will be able to at least read some of my scripts and stuff. So,
are you gonna do like when a director's commentary? Or are you gonna do it like basically like talk off camera, or are you gonna do it more of like a mystery science theater where you're just like,
I don't know, it'll be off camera. It'll be like
you should just like green screen yourself in, you know, like you're a weatherman or whatever. You're like looking back here, like pointing with a stick, like so if you look right here.
Well, I should do like one of those like variety videos. It's like what the director breaks down a scene and they're like drawing on.
Oh my god! Yeah. Like one of those fancy GQ things or whatever. You're like sitting.
Yeah, you just sit down. You have you get like the marker and there's like circles out. It's like the 100 arrows. Anytime I see a YouTube link with that shit, I hate it. When it's like where's like a video and like the what's it called, not the wallpaper of it, but basically like the thumbnail has like 100 arrows and stuff like that.
Yeah, you gotta do like
it gives me an aneurysm and a half, man.
Oh yeah, the soy face, like
yeah.
But yeah, sorry, I was about to say my Instagram, but yeah, Nutcase Films on TikTok and YouTube, and Vimeo.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Next episode, we out.
We out.